I disagree. Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spin Rack. It's Mars and Petey. Say what's up, Petey.
What up?
Yo, Spider-Man director Jon Watts, according to Deadline, exits Marvel's Fantastic Four. What the Goonie Goo is going on? Is Krasinski not going to do the movie? Hey, our resident expert here, I'm talking to our man himself. Petey, give us a little bit more about this.
I mean, it's a story that's already there. He withdrew as director. So we had this guy they got an almost 2 billion Spider-Man movie, and now he's about to exit he exited the Marvel thing. But what else could he be doing at the same time? He's doing a George Clooney Brad Pitt bromance. So I mean, he just used the Marvel springboard to bounce from one project to the next.
Well, that's a smart move. I mean, of course.
Yes, it is. If you want to get out of, you've already made your money. The thing is like this. You're right. You're right. The thing of it, you don't know how. No, it doesn't matter. You're doing a George Clooney Brad Pitt movie. It could do whatever.
Right.
It's gonna make its money regardless. You can make a ton of money, but now he's exploring his brand. He's got the bulletproof George Clooney and Brad Pitt. They could do a movie that doesn't make any money, and he'll still be called to be he's a great director. They'll ask him to do other things. So this isn't a bad career move. I do think the maximum amount of money he can make. He's going to make money with these two guys. He's just not going to be making as much money as with Marvel. But how much money do you need? And
his participation, I mean, like you said, he may have a better participation with this because
that too
as an unknown director out of nowhere. They chose Jon Watts. I'm like, where did he come from? You know, I'm trying to say. I think before that he had a movie, Cop Car, and then before that, Clown. So, and then they got him to do Spider-Man. And you keep saying Marvel, wasn't it Sony? Sony's the one that made that call. So, his profit.
Is you're saying that the Marvel Studios Spider-Man film actually made the decision on this when it still was a Marvel Kevin Feige direction movie where they're what's the name? Sony, their only thing is that they're going to get a good share of the money because it's their character and they're letting Disney kind of participate with it. But at the same time, it's more of a Disney Marvel Studios thing as far as direction, production, and what's the name would just get funneled with all the movie, but they're sharing a little more of it with Disney now for the Spider-Man movie.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Okay, interested. Didn't know that's how it broke down, but okay. Hey, you can't be wrong, Petey. I'm all with that.
Oh my gosh! Now he's kind of overstated instead of doing his usual. I disagree. But this is going to like I guess an Apple. It could be just an Apple TV show, meaning that the money's already made. Don't have to make no money. All it does is show up on Apple TV, and they never show you what the numbers are. But the money is what it is because they're still developing.
Right.
They're smart enough not to put all their information out. They're just like saying, "Hey, look at the talent we got. We got Jennifer Aniston. We got this person. We got the flight attendant. All this other stuff. Just keep showing up and Oh wow, this actress passed too from Judge and Amy. Sorry, it's here. But basically,
So I mean, I wanted to make one point about Jon Watts. I did say, they plucked him out of obscurity, but he was making videos from 2004 to 2011, and he was also doing commercials, right? And then he did four movies. So I don't want to make it seem as though he didn't do anything. He was, being a successful director, music director, and commercial director, and so he moved on to movies. So big claim for the guy.
Well, I think it's the thing where he possibly. I mean, all of it is we have to hypothesize what happened and trying to get out of a Fantastic Four movie when we have, if we consider the one that Roger Corman did, 4 of them that weren't big successes. So, and 2 that were bombs, or 1 that didn't come out and another that was a bomb. So when you think about it like that, I think it's also, hey, I don't want to be tied to this sort of thing, which ultimately, in my mind, if you I don't know what Marvel Studios is going to do with this. If they're saying they're picking the talent, and maybe it's a property that he has no idea about, but somehow they got some of the Marvel stuff, Spider-Man stuff into Spider-Man, so they could get some of the interesting stuff of the Fantastic Four. But now people aren't looking at it as a bad move for Jon Watts. Is looking at the Fantastic Four as cursed. There was one report said it was a cursed Marvel property, and ultimately, the hard part is to me is that we keep seeing Fantastic Four things that are just dull, that they're like a family friendly type of thing, where we can't get to the heart of why these guys were successful. And the Marvel Studios is kind of utilizing all their stuff in their movies rather than say, let's figure these guys out and make it cool. But
Okay, but I got to stop you there. Okay, so let's hold.
here we
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Because the thing is, if you it's a Marvel comic book, so therefore it's a Marvel movie. No, Fantastic Four was run by Fox, or was it Universal? I believe it was Fox. It was run by.
Feige was involved in that.
It was involved in that because he was representing Marvel. But in terms of the money and the decisions and the directions of what would ultimately done, it was run by somebody else. This is a period. Remember, all those top things, Fantastic Four, X-Men, Spider-Man, were all sold off by Marvel. They didn't have creative control. I mean, of course they're going to be brought in to make some decisions, but they did not. This is one of the reasons Marvel
Now
Studios.
we're saying that it's not Kevin Feige's fault, even though
Right.
he made
I'm saying they made those
Spock's
decisions
fault.
on their own. And all I'm just trying to point out is that I think there's a different um, take on these movies once they come into the MCU, because now they have full control and they can decide on how they want to do, how they want to release it, what they want to emphasize, the stories they want to push forward, and the writers they're going to do. Feige has a machine. So I think, I disagree. I can think with John Watts, he's a successful director. He's been through that whole machine and seeing how it works. And probably he's like, hey, like you just said, there's a lot more upside not being associated with a project which has had problems, but also you also have the issue with, we're working with these two guys, Brad Pitt and George Clooney. They're getting the money right now, even though the movie isn't written, isn't even done. It's being greenlit. They're getting backing from the studio, so that's a big upside in terms of money. It's also a big upside in terms of a connection. You deal with two of the biggest stars or A-list stars in Hollywood. That opens doors to other people. So I think it's only win-win for him. It's like, hey, yeah, Fantastic Four is good, but like you just said, it could go down. It could not necessarily make it. And I mean, and yet they haven't even reinforced who's going to be in the cast. So I think Krasinski is probably a shoo-in for this whole thing, or probably he's already under contract, just like
Don't
they.
go to the Krasinski thing, because the thing is, outside of the height, they're trying to still get this sort of funny scientist thing where they were spending probably more time, having Krasinski talk about Iron Man theories in the Fantastic Four, when it's like, I think the thing is ultimately having Marvel Studios do the right one. When what did they do with Spider-Man? They did a Hollywood Spider-Man character. They did it, and not like Marvel Spider-Man has already been where they updated him, where he had friends. Sometimes he was with a group. Like Marvel Studios said, no, on his day one or day two, he's gonna join the Avengers. He's gonna have Iron Man suits. He's gonna have he's gonna be utilize. He's gonna be the legacy Iron Man. That is not Spider Man, and it wasn't. It didn't turn really successful too much later. It was okay, a decent amount of numbers for the first film, but as they've added more stuff, because the second movie had Iron Man plastered all over the second one to say, hey, this is a connection to Endgame, and they did everything to say after Endgame, come here, and people came out to see it. Now this one, the last one, they said, let's put all Spider-Mans in there, let's make it a fun thing, and it's very successful. It's scary how successful this thing is. You know,
Why
the
is it scary?
1.8, the 1.89 billion, like this is gonna be like 2 billion. It's like one of the,
Yeah.
let's say, the six highest grossing films ever.
And it could have been bigger if it wasn't for the pandemic. You see how crazy it was, you know?
For I don't That's the thing. I'm not really, I think it's nothing storytelling wise in there. It's just maximum characters. And the only problem with the Sinister Six was, how do you do a Sinister Six movie without Spider-Man? And basically they were able to do a Sinister Six movie with Spider-Man, but instead of him initially fighting, he tries to save them, which turns, of course, falls apart and all this other stuff. So I just think that we need to not, the handling of how they took Spider-Man and just made him into a character. Because obviously you had to go different than the last one, but they just made him a happy-go-lucky character that was kind of like really wide-eyed. Where Spider-Man is very cynical, doesn't meet other heroes, and gets like, wow. He kind of looks at other heroes and tries to get his shots in, because he's, that this is exploring the other side of his personality. And then you look at the same time, Peter Parker is also a volatile character. He's not this character that is, kind of seen like this guy who is he has all these things that's going on in his head like a teenager, which leads him to having these emotional outbursts, which leads him to times where he's trying to not show his spider strength. He gets in a couple fights in the early series. So, and even after Ditko left, he's like, so the idea of doing, seeing their handle of it, meaning that they kind of, romanticized things, made May younger, gave him a suit. They couldn't say that he made a suit that was skin tight, that was perfect. He was it's a vacuum seal type thing. It's an Iron Man thing. Then he'd run around in an Iron Man outfit for the rest of the thing, and the tech and all the nanotech and all that stuff. All that is, Spider-Man has gadgets. He has the light, the web shooters, and I think that's it. His camera. He can do some science stuff, but giving him the full Iron Man stuff. This approach, just to disagree with what you were saying about getting the Marvel seal on it, meant it was just kind of giving it a Hollywood type thing. I'm scared about what that means for Fantastic Four. The X-Men was successful. So what different things would you do with the X-Men, even though that was done by Fox too, when thing was successful and only characters that people like are Wolverine, Magneto, and they like Xavier around for Magneto to kick Xavier in the head. And then now you got Mystique. That will be the sign to show you how successful the Fox movies are. If they do a mutant story and Mystique shows up, because Mystique is not an X-Men. If she immediately shows up, that means that they looked at the Fox films and they want to take everything that they did and do it over, but they'll give it a different spin. So I'm kind of worried about this. I'm kind of worried that, I think someone said, whatever was the last version of the characters, that becomes the movies. And that's where we see Ultimate Spider-Man, the Ultimates, a lot of that stuff is in these books, in these stories. So it's kind of like, the most recent thing is we're seeing Jonathan Hickman's seal on this thing. So that has not real science, but comic book continuity science, where he's using the Infinity Gauntlet. It's like the League of a million Reed Richards and stuff like that people like. But I mean, it's not in it like totally innovative, because some of that stuff was already done with other characters, but it was something that people kind of lauded to have Reed as having Reed as the driving force of the team. The other problem is that the thing turns into just the grumpy uncle, where you got to get to the thing being a tortured sort of hero, like this tragic hero that has some humor in him. You can have some fun, but if you just do like a grumpy uncle type of deal, you're not gonna win. you're not going to say this character is more interesting in the Hulk. Then the only way you can do that is have him come to the Marvel Universe and knock out the Hulk, and then you'll be like, oh wow, thing is interesting. That's the only way you can do it. That's my first plot for Marvel Studios thing, for the Thing to come there, knock out the Hulk, and then we'll know that, oh, the Thing is something to be thought of, and then they have a fight after that where they tie. But I'm just worried at how they took Spider-Man now that this has happened, and they're not gonna, whatever the plan was is still the plan. So I mean, they can get anybody into these things and do them, and that's my worry. Instead of trying to capture some of the things that really made the FF work, like because it's easy to do the Torch, it's easy to do a Thing that's kind of lovable and huggable, but really getting to that dynamic of the tortured hero of the Thing and that Reed is kind of the fault for that happening. And then you can get to the heart of it where they're still being heroes despite this underlying dynamic of struggles. And, Johnny and Sue kind of flesh out the stories as the family of the Thing. So, I said a lot, but I'm just
Yeah, I
worried.
don't know what to how to
I
even
know
respond.
I went too far as usual.
Look, I get it, but we one of the things that we've been it's one of the things we can talk about is the whole thing, the direction that Marvel has. But they have a system, and unfortunately, yes, there are misses, but there are also some pretty good hits, and I know that you have to make a lot of these movies palatable to the general audience. And yes, as comic book fans, comic book readers, it's something that we struggle with like just not even the character and the story. But in the end of the day, we always have to go down and say, "Were we entertained?" Right? I mean, a great example is the Moon Knight right now. It's not uh,
Entertaining.
it's not as great as I would want, but I would still give it a decent score going forward. The production value, the actor, the story, it's not over yet. And I think that there a lot of times a lot of these things happen where they have a plan for what these characters are going to do or do somewhere else. Like the Ant-Man character, who the first movie was good, the second movie was not, but he didn't do a gigantic type of stuff, but he was great in what's the name of that movie? Uh, in I thought he did a decent
Game.
job in Game. I thought he did a decent job. Yeah, you know.
I
So,
can't. I hear you, but the sign of what Marvel wants to do is just say we're just gonna put our in-game stuff into your characters. We're gonna put Spider-Man into the Avengers immediately. We're gonna, tie in Endgame to the X-Men, tie in Endgame into the Eternals. Like all this stuff is gonna just tie into stuff that they already did. And that's the fix of doing a Marvel Studios film for these characters that they're slowly bringing in.
but
It's
hey,
connecting
that's
them to
that's what makes it more successful than DC. There's a tie-in, so people watch not just one movie. I know during the pandemic we watched all the Marvel movies again. You know, because people were like,
we. You mean your family?
right, we all watched the whole.
Not the whole audience watched the whole thing all over
But it's
again.
not only us. A lot of people did. They're like, "Yo, now that Disney Plus is there, the ability, and it even gives you. You can watch it
And
in
what did you
timeline
do?
order.
Watch.
You can watch it in timeline order. You can watch it in release order. So I'm just saying that you go to DC, you don't have that. And I think whereas DC struggles with that, the Marvel brand, the Marvel Disney brand definitely develops that. And I think that's something, whether we disagree with the individual movies, the overall brand is very strong. We may have problems with individual projects. Some projects we're not crazy about, but the overall brand. And I think with Jon Watts, getting back to where we started, Jon Watts, I think that he's done his with this in the Sony Marvel vein and stuff, where Sony was making the end calls on a lot of those things.
They
You know,
weren't making. Look at this. It's not the end call. It's they gave Spider-Man up for
they
three
sold it. Yes,
films.
Sony can do what they want to do.
They gave him up to Marvel for 3 films. And then Marvel negotiated for a little more so they could get some more of the profits, and they hashed that out. So it's
Right.
not they didn't have the end say on what happened in these things. They just said, "Hey, we want to use some of this stuff for our stuff too, right? And that's what happened. You see, the Vulture and Morbius and stuff like that. So I think it's not a thing of Hickman having some struggles with some, like, why would he leave Marvel Studios if Sony was the problem?
I'm not saying there's a problem. I'm just saying everybody says the system is pretty rigid, right? And also, like I said, they got him when he was younger, so his upside is probably not quite as strong. He's willing to do projects. Now you have the freedom, or like he has enough money now, the freedom to do what he wants. And we
Nobody
got,
has the freedom to do what they want. He's just
well,
lucky that he got a good
He
place.
wants to work with Brad Pitt
Yeah,
and
he got
Meryl Streep.
lucky
That's
to
the
do
freedom
that.
there.
That's the
He can,
thing. You
he can,
don't, you
he can,
don't.
he can afford to not work. He can afford to say, I don't really want to do the Marvel stuff. That's what I'm
There's
talking about.
something that's called director's jail, right? And there's also something to say once you do it until you get to the Dunkirk time, that's when you can say I can greenlight movies that I want to do. But what did we have before Dunkirk? We had Inception. We had the Batman movies. We had this thing where he built the $1 billion thing. He built that he was $1 billion director. This guy's done one film that's $1 billion. He's not at the stage where he can come in and say, this Brad Pitt and George Clooney movie is a Brad Pitt and George Clooney movie that he's directing. But he's not someone that can go in and say, I want to do a story about two elves. Like, he's not, I don't care that he did a movie that did almost 2 billion. No one's looking at him and saying he wants to do that. But it's still a possibly something that would be more, no, Marvel being the most challenging, but as a director, trying to work out scenes with actors, having more challenging as far as what a normal direction is, not a green screen type of deal, that sort of stuff. And saying, I'll be with George Clooney, it'll be a high profile project. Even if it doesn't do well, it'll still sit somewhere that someone wants to see and it'll make its money. So, I mean, I think I can't, because I'm just saying you were starting out saying the Sony is like telling him what to do. And now he's also like, if he decided on the Fantastic Four, because this has been happening for a while, trying to figure out what they're going to do with it. And he bows out, and then now we got a cursed project. Because who knows what works. Hollywood knows that directors know what works. So if a director leaves, that's saying
Hollywood knew what worked all the time. There'll only be hits, Speedy. They don't. They have an idea. They have some data.
if Marvel says they want to go a different direction and kick the guy out, that's one thing. If he exits, it's looking like the project is finished. That they
No,
can't
I
figure
got it.
this out.
I think that they've had many projects where they've had people come out. They just have a direction they want to do.
Well, I mean, even looking at this Hickman thing, Hickman went back to the regular Fantastic Four logo, which wasn't the sort of the cartoon logo that they had. So this is an embarrassment that people have working on these characters, they've been these characters that kind of spawned everything at Marvel, but now they are struggling to compete with the characters that came after them. It's just like pass the baton to the X-Men, pass the baton to the Avengers, and saying, well, they got all this plethora of characters, but then it's like, let's take the quantum thing and give it to Ant-Man. And let's give, Ronan the Accuser to the Guardians. Oh, and Ego was the Thor character, but the story they used
But
was.
what's the problem as long as you're enjoying it, right?
The problem is that you saying the Fantastic Four don't work when those stories could just be Fantastic Four
I'm
stories.
not saying they don't work. I'm just saying that probably the problem
Not
with
you, the people who are saying that this is a cursed project because the director's leaving.
I think they're crazy. I think that the problem is that, like I said, it's going to be under Marvel purview. They're going to take their time, and they've been doing that very much under. They haven't been under the radar. They've been doing it, and I think that you have the actors, Krasinski and his wife, and what everybody was saying, the rumors, the open rumors. So and this kind of, you know, so they have the actors. So it's just a question of just getting everything together. They probably have the production. They have the budget. It's just getting it over the goalposts. And I think that, you have someone in the talent with Krasinski who can act, who can also direct, who can also produce. I hope that they don't want to make him like what they did with Alec Baldwin, say, hey, yeah, you take care of the project. And that may also be another issue where you
What do
have,
you mean? What do you mean with Alec Baldwin taking over a
I
project?
remember not Alec Baldwin, the guy who played Batman,
You
uh,
talking about Ben Affleck?
Ben Affleck, and so I'm saying where they would say, hey, you handle it, or probably there's a butting of the heads. We don't know, where here the actor and the thing. We don't know to what degree is going on, and we'll find out later, as we always find out about these things. But I don't think this is a cursed project. We haven't even seen enough to say, hey, curse. If
Well,
you want to talk about the movie, the first one that came out, the last one that came out, the diverse Fantastic Four, I think that was just not properly executed. If we want to talk about the
that
original with
first.
Jessica Alba and stuff like that, those were generally successful movies. I'm trying to say they weren't hugely successful, but for the time they were. All right. So I think that we need to put these type of things in context. The length of time coming out the movie is okay. They just need to just do something a little different. There's tons of Fantastic Four villains they can come out. You have Terminex. You have, of course, they have yet to really do a Galactus. Start off big, possibly blow that up. What I'm trying to say. They finally introduced Mephisto. There
That's the
are.
hard thing. If you do like Galactus and they're
I'm
taking
just
over
giving
the
an
rest,
example.
I'm saying that people won't have a hard time saying, why aren't the rest of the Avengers and all these other characters and the Black Panther stopping them from doing the Earth and saying, we need to see everybody in one film. That's the horror of doing the shared universe, is that the same thing the kids say. Well, where were the Avengers when Galactus came? And it's like you can't keep doing that and saying, can I just tell the story I want to tell? Wherever they were on the other side of the earth or the other side of the galaxy. And people are like, no, 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 but this is important. Shouldn't the Avengers be there? And then they stop them and that sort of thing. I mean, I think, I don't know.
Using that logic, then this should be every single superhero movie would be that way. So
I
I
don't want it to be, but they doing that.
no, but I'm just
They're
saying,
doing the team ups thing. You
the
know I don't
logic.
care about
I
that.
know you don't like the team, but what I'm trying to say by using that every single time, Batman cannot go anywhere. I mean, Superman can't go anywhere because everything is done. He can't have a life. And forget about that whole Lois. He's working 24/7. There's other people doing different things. There's other people doing different. Focusing on different areas. I think we know suspension of disbelief and let it rock. Don't let those Twitter people get into it with you. If you want me to talk to them, I'll talk to them.
I'm saying to you like this. One of the things that why it doesn't work, if you look at I was looking at World's Finest, which was like a DC comic that was 300 issues of Superman and Batman together, right? And Superman and Batman go to different worlds. What happens? Superman puts Batman in a suit, carries him over to the other thing. Superman, everywhere he goes, he carting him around. The only thing, I guess, the difference in Man of Steel, even though Byrne was changing the dynamic, he made sure he didn't have Superman carrying Batman around. And ever since then, every time they need to go somewhere, you just see Batman jumping down and you see Superman dropping like they came at the same time. One got off the plane, the other got off that when Superman could fly way faster, and you have to play to that. But it shows that it can't actually, timing wise, everyone be in the same place at the same time. And to do Galactus and say, well, this guy we need all the rest of the Marvel universe to be standing out there to stop him. And that's not what the Galactus story is that they show enough initiative to kind of get Galactus to leave. And that'd be hard for the movie audience to understand. And that's why the way I came into Galactus, which was trying to recreate like the story of the Silver Surfer with a human. And that's what I think Byrne had done, where Galactus has been drawn to the Earth by his herald, who has turned against him and said, "Hey, but you can't do it because you don't know." But the idea is that he said, "Hey, the Fantastic Four already beat Galactus. They sent them off. Now they just I'm going to make them fight. I'm going to make them fight Galactus." And then they meet. And as a kid, this is the first story I read with them. I was like, "Oh, okay. I see all the heroes fighting against Galactus, so Galactus is bad." So the Fantastic Four meet Terrax. Terrax is like, "Go in there and get Galactus. He's a sham of himself." And then the Fantastic Four walk in, And he said, and Galactus like, yes, I know you're already here. And they start talking, and I say, wait a second, they're talking. They're not going in and fighting them, even though Manhattan is hanging in the balance and all this stuff. And Terex is like, and I don't hear any fighting. And then at the same time, they get rid of Terex, but Galactus is like, hey, I'm here. I can't, I'm hungry. I'm not going to make it if I don't eat Earth. And that causes them to fight, but it leads them to bring him back alive, and they send him out into space afterwards by him getting a herald. But when they get to the end, when they save his life, he's like, we're at the same point that we were at before. I can't, if I travel and those things aren't fruitful, you're in the same boat. Now I have to come back here and eat the Earth. And that's where Harold comes along, and then we get him. What?
I'm listening.
I'm saying that instead of just doing a versus battle or a thing like that, is doing the concept where Galactus is actually not someone, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. He's a character that the Fantastic Four and the Avengers decide, hey, even though he's trying to eat the Earth, we can't let him die. And that's a powerful story to do, whereas people are like, no, well, he kills people, so he's killing planets, so they should just let him die. Oh, this, that, and the other. But that's not the story Stan Lee and Jack Kirby came up with. And we want people to fix that stuff. But it's the thing. This is storytelling that is going to make you, think about stuff and think about this aspect of, the character of Galactus being higher on the food chain than us. And what will we do? We don't think we should, but it gets a lot of ideas out there. And that's one thing to get to, rather than just do your normal, hey, here comes the new big guy for everyone to see. He's worse than Thanos. Look, he's going to eat the Earth. Oh, wow. Because they turn ego into this. I'm putting seeds on every planet.
I got it, PD, but I'm just saying, come on. Man.
Stop acting like I'm just going on forever.
Do the playback when you get a chance. PD, I'm just saying, look, we get it. We understand that. But I think we got to give him some chance to do that. That doesn't take away from the fact we haven't seen the project. We don't understand what the project is. So we understand, yeah, there are concerns. And we've seen concerns with some shows. If we look at WandaVision and concerns that we've had with
DC. Every delay on a DC project means it's finished. Every time. Anytime there's a reshoot on the DC project. That's how Hollywood works now. When everything gets reshoots, everything goes into testing, everything gets reshoot. They reshoot everything, they fix whatever mistakes is found in testing and move on. With something like this that has a bad track record, which you already pointed out, it doesn't really have a terrible track record. They have two movies that did okay, and one that bombed, and one that Marvel didn't let come out, right? So all they have to do is a harder edge version of the first two. Maybe add some more different villains, maybe not do Doom. Then you get to what you were talking about, doing a big story that connects everything, but then that's going to lead them to what? That damn Secret Wars. And I'm already out too, so there's no way for me to get back into this.
It's just a great opportunity to bring in something. We've touch base on that.
Shooter already said that they bought him off to use the Beyonder. They didn't say the Beyonder, but they said, hey, we need you to sign this off on this. And it's like, you don't need me to do anything. You guys already own it. No, we didn't have any paperwork. We need you to sign this. Here's $50,000. Whatever, you just sign this for us. So it's a damned if you do for me, damned if you don't. But I think the Hollywood curse is kind of what people look at on these things, which is not something I would worry about. I would just say you need to do it and do it well and not do Secret Wars.
I don't know how we got there, but okay. I think we should wrap this one up, okay? So Jon Watts leaving the spot, the Fantastic Four does not make it a cursed project. And hopefully it will come out soon. Any last words, Petey?
That's it.
Okay, then Spinnerack.
Don't act like you got a problem with me. Spinnerack out.
I can't laugh.
You're like how I just went off the rails again. Spinnerack out. Look at it. What are you laughing about? because I'm passionate about something, you got to turn it into that I took this thing off the rails. It's a cursed project. People think things are cursed. They have issues with delays, directors leaving, all that stuff.
All films have delays and,
But
and
they only care about it with the movies that they think are gonna suck.
of course, and but this is not. We don't look. Disney has a way to do magic, and they're definitely going to put the time and effort. They've taken a long time to choose the actors and actresses for this film. They've taken a long time to put the things together. I can't imagine that this is going to fail. They're going to take. They know how sensitive it is. Being that the Fantastic Four was the series that relaunched Marvel, basically, right? And they know how vested a lot of people are in it. Um, so I don't think this is going to be one of those. If that means they got to throw in Spider-Man to make it work, they're going to do that. If they means they got to throw in
Yeah.
Black Panther, and these are all characters in there, and Namor, they will do it. If they got to throw a world-ending situation such as Galactus, it will be done. So I don't understand the whole issue there. Whether it's what you expect, whether it follows the ideas of what we read and continue, it may not. You know, are they going to be characters that they change up? I think they will be. You know, but the course in the end, are we going to enjoy it? And the question is whether does it help to continue the Marvel cinematic universe. You know, since we watch those movies continuously. You know, that's all
All
I'm saying.
right.
Are you recording this madness?
Yeah, he didn't stop
We
yet.
said spin rack out.
Well,
So
you were still talking, and it wasn't.
no, you were talking.
You didn't curse like you normally do at the end of these things.
I don't cuss at all.
All right, spinner rack.
Out.